We see all the commanding officers, and something I found noteworthy is that there was a lot of older women in this meeting of the higher ups.
国連軍、ソ連軍双方より衛星情報とともに警告を受けました。しかし先日の攻勢により要塞陣地の地上兵力は4割以下に落ち込んでいます。
And that's something that's also quite unique to East Germany, I think, that there's a large proportion of working women. Because in East Germany, as the communism tells, everyone should work, and theoretically everybody should be considered the same. So I think women in East Germany had, at least socially, a higher standard than in a lot of other countries at the same time. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think
that's quite correct.
And I like that part, and because a lot of people complained, well, what's this harem shit? There's so many women. As I said, most men are dead, so it makes sense. There's more young women, and this proves kinda that it's not only good-looking, attractive women, but that a few commanding officers are middle-aged to old women in the higher up ranks. I like that. The next thing is, which I was a bit confused about at first, is the name of the secretary of the commander, and that was Marei. But as you looked up, it's a alternative version of Maria or Maria. So that would be still accurate. It's just I haven't heard that name so much before, but it's true apparently. So the next thing is really interesting. We see short bits of text on the computer with articles in German.
なんだこれ。名前が潰されている。これも。乗ってるよ、父さん。
And later on,
that
what
was
was
the command, his command console that gave him the new orders, I think.
Yes, and that opened up like an email screen, and that was also perfect German. It was perfect German. We could read it like normal German, actually. We didn't see a spot any major mistakes while reading it. Theodor looked up information about General Strachwitz and his father, and there was an article about how his father made theater for a theater and play, and it's just something you would have read in a German newspaper. It's accurate. You can't say it otherwise. I didn't see anything that was weird about that. So, very important fact here, I think, is that Theodor, while he's like, I don't want to have to do anything with the Stasi, and he seems cold to other people, but here it feels like he still cares.
なんで俺はこんなヤバそうなことしてんだ。
手すきな半人前が無茶すんじゃねえ。おとなしくしてろ。長引くぞ。体力は温存しとけ。
He tries to avoid the Stasi because many people said he is kind of stoic, he's like an asshole, but considering his background, I think it makes sense the way he acts, and I liked the small details that he still does the effort to get information for other people, and that his form of tough love against Katja shows he cares about her. Otherwise, he would just let her die and run into the Stasi and say, I have nothing to do with her.
We see a photo of Strachwitz and his daughter, and it's in front of a Brandenburg gate. Now, it is correct, if you look closely, you see in the background that there's the Berlin Wall visible behind the Brandenburg gate. And yeah, it went directly there, where the gate was. The only thing that's kind of incorrect is that the gate looks in pretty prime condition, and it wasn't at the time, because it was in this zone near the Berlin Wall. There was basically an off-limits area that was quite wide, where you couldn't approach the wall just like that. So a result of that was also that this gate really, it was almost black until reunification, because it was still charred from World War II. There were still bullet holes and stuff like that, so it wouldn't have looked as new as it does in that photograph. But other than that, it's all correct. Couldn't quite check his epaulettes if they were according to Strachwitz's rank, simply because in that photo, in that image, they're not drawn with enough detail to really make it out. Thomas Müntzer, it's very interesting that they brought that up, because he's a little bit of a semi-star for East German socialists. He lived in the 15th to 16th century in Germany, and he was known as someone who stood up to authority, who opposed a feudal authority, and this of course very much fits into the socialist narrative. And he led the German peasant uprising, which ultimately was a war of the peasants that the peasants lost against their oppressors, and Müntzer died, but he basically became a martyr for modern socialists in Germany in that way. So it was quite reasonable that a whole battalion would be named after him.
地上部隊がノイエンハーゲン要塞陣地に撤退中。
Yeah, we have Fort Neuenhagen is mentioned. Now, it wasn't really a fort as it is shown in the show. Like, this wasn't really this huge fortress thing or anything.
Neuenhagen 要塞陣地
But it's in eastern Berlin, and it was one of East Germany's biggest depots for NVR equipment, for trucks, tanks, and all of that of the East German army. So yeah, it existed, just not really completely in that function as shown. But then again, in this huge war scenario that we have, it's not unlikely that they would have built it up to be a huge impenetrable fortress.
And the com mode, like the screen used where the email and where you can see the battlefield, it's in English, which I find weird, because I don't think German or Russia would use English as a primary language.
They could have. The thing is, I know this from my father, who worked as an electrician in East Germany, and also in the army as in that same function. A lot of basic terms in electronic stuff, they would remain English, because most of the stuff would be based on Western inventions. So it's not unlikely that like some words in the interface would be English, or just some general designations, but overall most of the necessary stuff would be translated, yes. I can't quite make it out. It looks, when I look at the basic shape, to be a Mil-Me type. That would be a Soviet helicopter fitting into a time period, but I can't really make out anything beyond that. We'll need to wait for future episodes.
So, and then at the end of the episode you see Fortsetzung folgt, which is German for to be continued, which we didn't tell you in the first episode, but it was kind of obvious. That is correct, that is the real form to use to be continued in Germany. Also, we didn't mention that Beatrix said Strafe in the first episode, which is just a literal translation for punishment, so it makes also sense. And then there's 2 points I would like to talk about, because one thing is the naivety of West soldiers, because Katja seems extremely green when talking about unification of East and West Germanies, and to me it still feels mostly real, because West Germans didn't have this form of oppression and didn't have that much contact with East German soldiers. She still seems a little bit too green and optimistic, but for the most part, I think most West soldiers, but also East soldiers, were kind of uninformed about the other culture or state in general.
Well, I think it's more or less a thing of age, because when it comes to politicians, West German politicians, by the time the 80s rolled around, they weren't really expecting a reunification to happen anymore. I mean, in the end, Chancellor Kohl really pushed that forward and managed to do it, but his successor, I think he got into office in 98, Schröder. Back then, prior to the reunification in the 80s, he basically was once asked about the topic, and he said, well, let's focus on things that are much more likely to happen. And basically, a huge consensus of the politicians at the time was, okay, this won't be happening anytime soon. But it's not unreasonable for young people to still believe in that unification and have that dream and those aspirations, as all young people do.
So, and another thing I find interesting is which just wanted to tell you another thing about the close range weapons. You see, for example, Annette mostly using her sword to fight. And it makes sense because ammunition is something that should not be wasted too much, and prioritizing laser targets, because it's a simple reason it can be used up. And as you saw in the first episode, all of them said, yeah, I'm down to pretty much 40% of my ammunition. And that's a major factor in is once your ammunition is up, you only have the sword. And you should prioritize not losing it. It just because in a lot of shows is it stupid using a sword to fight, rather use guns, but they can't afford it. They have to prioritize close range weapons because also, but it's also dangerous because the beta can easily destroy a mech in one hit, as seen with the commander who was killed in one hit by the Fortress beta.
Marei.
Yeah, just because of that limited ammo, there's a nice little anecdote that maybe clear that up. My father told me that he used to serve in the East German Navy, and they had a common exercise with the Russians on U-boats, and basically there were these targets around that they had to find and destroy. Now, the East Germans had a little computer system that could calculate where the targets were and fire them one shot, one hit down. It just took some time for them to find this target. The Russians, on the other hand, had so much ammunition that they just shot into all directions and eventually hit the target just by luck, and always won due to that fact. So yeah, this shortage of ammunition for East German military forces is maybe a good reference as well, and quite accurate.
So that was it for the second episode of Schwarzesmarken. You should see a link to episode 3 here once episode 3 is out. And if you liked it, please like the video, comment if you have questions, and I would like it if you could share it, because currently I can't use different thumbnails because I got a copyright strike. So I would really appreciate if you would share it a bit, but I'm not going to beg you for it. So until next time, and remember, we can say it, we're German.